Hi, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Ada. My guest today is a clean energy professional whose journey started in Nigeria, where growing up with unreliable electricity sparked a lifelong mission to change that reality. Victor Obetta is a project development lead working on clean energy and infrastructure projects, from electrification and decarbonization to solar and battery storage systems. But his work extends far beyond the US. As vice president of NSBE Boston, the National Society for Black Engineers, he is mentoring the next generation of engineers and leaders. And through his own Obetta Foundation, he's bringing educational and sports opportunities to underprivileged youth in Nigeria. With a master's in business analytics from Bentley and technical certifications in solar, electrical work, and heat pumps, Victor brings a rare blend of data-driven strategy and hands-on expertise to the clean energy space. Welcome to Coffee with Ada, Victor. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing.
Great. So I'm going to jump right in. You grew up in Nigeria and you talk about growing up with unstable electricity. How did that shape your decision to work in clean energy and infrastructure?
I would say growing up in Nigeria, energy shading wasn't a policy issue. It was a problem that happened every single day in the middle of dinner, in the middle of a study session, in the middle of surgery. So it's something that you have to plan your day around it because you don't know when the electricity will come and go. And that's a very critical problem that since I moved here, got some degrees in business and business analytics in my master's. And then when I find myself in a transform power system, a clean energy career program, I actually realized what I have been missing, the question that I've always had to solve that problem that I had as a child studying with candlelight. So my drive came in after that opportunity, and today I want to solve that problem, mostly for our people in Africa as a whole.
Thank you so much. So you said that Africa's energy challenge is less about technology and more about execution. Can you talk to me about what that means from a project development perspective?
From a project development standpoint, the problem with Africa energy situation is we have the resources to build the solar system, but there's a lack of a procurement process. The government doesn't have any system that people can bid for these processes to receive the funding and actually build these energy projects. And from project development standpoint, we need experts that can handle this procurement process by communicating the technical terms to the community members to let them know the importance of this project. However, the government also needs to provide those resources. So usually the money is there. I would take, for example, what is happening here in the United States. The state and the federal government always releases funding for clean energy, but a lot of municipal leaders don't understand how to go about getting those funding in order to execute it. So from project development standpoint, you have to be able to communicate the technical terms to the community leaders to understand. And also data also plays a very big role in this, in the planning phase, because you need to understand where you're headed with such plan to make them happen.
I'm glad that you segued to here in the US because you've spent some time working here in the US over the last couple of years, working on electrification, decarbonization. You're working on municipal energy projects. What are some of the lessons from those systems that you think can help accelerate sustainable energy development globally, but particularly on the continent?
I would say from my experience with working in the States, managing about a $6.2 million clean energy pipeline project and applying to about 80 more clean energy proposal grant writing. I've attended a lot of events, and the pain point I always hear from leaders or council members has always been them being excluded in those processes. So I think globally there's need for us to have a way that we can educate the community leaders to understand the importance of what is happening. We have to start solving this problem by focusing on the communities that are less privileged. We have to focus on the little communities that cannot afford the energy in general, making sure that we're solving those problems. One, for example, in Africa, we can just put in a solar system in a library to make sure that every kid have access, don't use candlelight to study, and also making sure that hospitals have, or the local hospitals have, a kind of energy system that keep the vaccine alive, protected. And those are very major problems. And here in the United States, we're talking about some neighborhood that cannot really afford energy, and we have to make sure that we're providing those opportunities to them. That is how we can actually solve a global clean energy crisis.
Thank you so much. You've mentioned here, and also just in your work, you emphasize data quite a bit. You emphasize analytics quite a bit. When you think about the work that you do, what role do data analytics and stakeholder coordination play in successful energy infrastructure projects?
Well, data is everything. First, you need to actually understand the emission. You need to understand the projection of where you're heading to with certain projects. How is it going to benefit the people and the number of people? So everything comes down to collecting those data, reporting and building a forecast system that can reflect the current situation and the future plan and execution is very important, because that is where sustainability comes in. How can we sustain this project for the next 20 years? And if we don't have a clear understanding roadmap with data understanding, we wouldn't be able to make that happen. So I would say the data analytics part is very crucial in this process. And then when it comes to stakeholder engagement, if a community leader doesn't understand what the data you're trying to convey to them, if they don't agree with you, you need to be able to explain that to them. You need to be able to tell them the benefits and the implications of the decisions that are being made at the current moment, looking at 20 years projection, how is that going to turn out to the community? Like, again, if we're hospitals and libraries, and those people that cannot afford energy will be able to afford it, there will be room for small businesses to be able to run. And those are the things that keep communities alive. So stakeholder engagement is very important, because you have those people that make the decision, like the council members, you all need to agree. And that is where relationship building is important in terms of the stakeholder engagement.
So basically what I'm hearing is that the data is important. Having systems to collect the data to even know what the issue is, and then basically knowledge translation, being able to take that data and then speak to the communities and say, here is exactly what this means for you. Sure. And here is exactly why this is an important project or system to put in place. I want to go to relationship building, because that's something that you do really well. But before I do that, the data systems, how easy is it to put the system in place to collect the data?
Well, the collecting of data it's a very rigorous process, because we're talking about something that you have to build from scratch,
Right.
depending on the condition and where you are. First, we're looking at, let's say, in a community where there's about 10,000 people, that about 7,000 of them lack electricity or don't have access to clean energy. We're thinking about, calculating the emission size. Are we building, what kind of grid are we building? Are we building small or large grid? In some cases, that's why clean energy is important, because it doesn't require you to take years to build this huge energy plant. You have to build like a very small grid. And then we need to look at the capacity. How much do we need that can power this facility or this community? So data helps us make those decisions to make sure that we can convert that also with the financial modeling as well. When you go to the government to get all this funding, you should be able to give them an accurate data as well to make that decision.
Fantastic. You've worked in different scenarios with cities, municipalities, with agencies, and also with the community. I imagine that in your work, collaboration is a central part of the work that you do. How does collaboration help with clean energy deployment?
Well, collaboration is everything in this case, because, we're talking about when you engage with government leaders,
Right.
first you build those relationships, a professional relationship, knowing this community does need that funding, but most importantly, with the community leaders themselves, the people that actually need it. Breaking down the needs and breaking down the processes is what can get us through the line. Because in most cases, you meet municipal leaders or community leaders that don't really understand what clean energy is all about. It can be like, oh, maybe the government is trying to do something shady, and you need to be able to explain all of that to them. And also with finding the funding, which is very important, it's a tedious process applying for any grant or responding to RFP. And you need to be able to understand the problem from the standpoint of the people in that community that will interpret to the write-up that submits the procurement funding. So relationship building plays a very big role in that. If you don't have good relationship with them, they won't be able to give you those information that you need to make it successful.
So then let me ask, because it sounds like, working in project management or project development, you're navigating systems and people. And what are some of the skills, the skill sets that you've had to develop in order to do this kind of work well?
First, just being a people person, I think is very good. Being able to communicate with people. Also understanding the technical terms, because you also need to convey that message very clearly to people that are listening to you that I don't know much about it. So being able to manage, just understanding the nature of business. That's why project development is very, very important, because you're not just handling the project itself, but also handling the people around you and the people that you're working with. And then also in the government side, when you know people in the government agencies, so you'll be able to reach out to them. And that is just part of the collaboration. It's kind of a skill on its own to have that contact and being able to share those information around. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I'm going to move a bit beyond your project work. In addition to the work that you're doing, you're also vice president of NSBE Boston, and you founded the Obetta Foundation to support youth in Nigeria. Why for you is building the next generation of clean energy talent so important?
Building the next generation of clean energy talents, for me, like I said, we're looking at the world that we live in today with the energy crisis, and the goal is to be energy independent. And that comes from developing or building the strong younger people, leaders that will understand the need and the drive to do more with their lives in this area. I would say in NSBE, we have over 400 members managing a very huge project. And the goal with NSBE is to help professionals get to where they need to be, and at the same time developing a pipeline of college students, high school students, giving them opportunities. So not just even with NSBE, I also mentor with Build Boston and Big Brother, Big Sister, building the next generation of engineers and STEM educators and STEM professionals in different categories. For me, it's all about giving back and making sure that this doesn't end with me alone. I want to make sure that we give opportunity to the younger generation that will take this vision to a higher level. And what I do with Obetta Foundation is providing opportunity for young people that cannot afford to go to school. I was an athlete as well. I also provide opportunity for kids that want to play professional sports to be able to achieve their dream. So I don't just want to be me. I didn't get to play professional as I wanted. I want to see that dream come true by helping somebody who cannot afford it to get there.
What sport did you play?
I played soccer.
What's your position?
Midfield. I like to run a lot.
Do you believe that distributed clean energy can really transform underserved communities in both Africa and the United States? And how?
It can in a very big way. I would take myself, for example, growing up, I would study with a lantern or candlelight because there's no electricity to do that. First, we talk about when you're burning the candle and the lantern, you have all the smoke, which is not very healthy, affecting our lungs and our health. Providing clean energy opportunity is just an amazing way that any kid would not have to worry about how they can study and become successful. Being able to develop that and just give them hope. One of the things I always emphasize on with my surrounding is hope. Hope is very, very important, and hope with action is the most important thing, because if we look at people dying sometimes in African hospital, it's not because they're actually supposed to be getting into that situation because there's a lack of electricity to keep the vaccine alive for operating room, like I said before. And that is very personal because we have seen a lot of incident that happens. If we can put a solar in the roof and keep the energy alive during the surgery, we'll be able to save somebody's life. So it is very, very crucial that we are looking in that aspect. And likewise, in the global stage or even the United States, we're talking about a lot of communities that people freeze to death during the winter. If we are able to provide a clean, affordable energy system, people wouldn't be going through that. In Africa, again, we have more than 600 million people that don't have energy at all. Now, how do we solve that problem? And we're talking about Africa that has about 60% resources of the energy, but 600 million people don't have it. Now, we have the natural sun that can do so much for the people, but we need to be able to find a way to utilize that.
So you've kind of covered this a little bit, but I wanted to specifically tell me, what does an energy secure future look like to you? And what role do you hope to play in building it?
I will start with the role I hope to play with the energy secured future. I say when we turn on one light bulb for every single, I would say 600 family, that is turning on the light bulb for another 600 million people in the next generation. And that is something that we have overlooked. The role I really want to play in it is to do my job as a project development manager, understanding the funding and the procurement systems, and then being able to interpret that to community members and help them secure those funding and see that project to execution. Because that's another problem, being able to see the project to execution. That's something that I'm very passionate about. I'm currently building a SaaS application system. I haven't really named it, but I'm currently calling it clean energetic AI. And what this app does is to build an end-to-end procurement process by finding the funding and help write about 70 to 80% of the grant proposal. And then 20% somebody will review it. Because one of the problems that electrical engineering consulting companies have had in previous years, has been writing those proposals, but also finding the funding. But what this AI agent will do is to find those funding and help you write them, and then you can review it and turn it. So we don't lose all these funding opportunities that are coming out.
That's really cool.
Thank you.
I look forward to hearing more about it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit because this is Coffee with Ada.
Yes.
I'm going to do some Coffee with Ada trivia. African Clean Energy Edition. So the first question is, Africa has the world's largest solar potential. You mentioned the sun, right?
Okay.
But currently accounts for only about 1% of global solar capacity. Which African country currently leads the continent in installed solar power?
That currently leads the continent in
Installed solar power.
solar power. I would say Rwanda.
Close, but no.
Kenya?
Kenya is actually coming up. The
Yeah.
answer is South Africa.
Oh, South Africa.
There you go.
Interesting.
All right, one more trivia and then we'll almost round up. So, the African Development Bank estimates that Africa needs between 7 and 15 billion annually in clean energy investments to meet our climate goals, right? Mm-hmm. What is your gut? Are we close to that number? Is there a big gap? Just a guess.
There's a big gap.
Yeah.
Definitely a big gap.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of being living in Nigeria and with over 200 million people, we saw the energy crisis. Mm-hmm. So yes, in Africa as a whole, there's a huge gap.
You are correct. We are currently around 4 to 5 billion, so there's a significant gap. But also that means there's also a huge opportunity for the work that people like you and others are doing. Absolutely. I have one more question. It's a question I like to ask every time I speak to someone on Coffee with Ada because I think it helps sort of brings people's insights. What or who has been your biggest inspiration? Or what's the best advice you've ever received from your mom or your dad?
The best advice I've received from my mom and my dad is to work hard and believe in myself. I think self-doubt is one of the biggest enemy of our existence. And my parents have done a great job making sure that we trust our instinct and following our guts. It shaped the kind of person I am, and it's been a great journey seeing where I find myself today from that very lesson.
Victor, thank you so much for sharing your story with me,
Thank you.
from your past growing up to the work you're doing now in clean energy. It's clear, obviously, that your vision goes beyond infrastructure. I'm really excited to see where you take the next generation of the work that you're going to do. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button. We have more inspiring guests coming up. And if you know someone working in clean energy or climate tech who you want to see on Coffee with Ada, drop their name in the comments and we'll get back to them. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.